Hi, everybody. Mike Sheely, Mike Mitchell, and Mike Collins. Shortly, we're going to be talking to a friend of mine and the voice, I would say, of the state of Alabama for many, many years, and the voice of one of the most productive and dominating grocery chains also in the state of Alabama. People have asked me, how did I come up with the name Mike Mitchell? Well, in 1987, I graduated from college and I got a job at Q104 in Gadsden, Alabama. I had never been there, a huge steel plant, a big Goodyear tire plant, and I needed a name for the radio because when I was in college, I had to use Mike Sheely at the FM station in Toledo. So here I am doing midnight to 6 a.m., and I thinking, what am I going to use? I want to use Mike. So imagine this in 1987. There's only the AM FM radio. Cable television was big, and that was it. There was no internet. There was no cell phone. So basically, I had two competitors, other radio stations and cable TV and the movie cinemas, okay? So I thought of the name Mike Mitchell. Kind of flowed and easy to say, and maybe somebody could spell it. So I got in the studio, talked to the nighttime DJ, and it was my turn to go. And just after midnight, I said, Mike, this is your chance. You're a full-time disc jockey. You've dreamed about this since you've been about 13 years old in Cincinnati. When my dad gave me a microphone for high school basketball, and I said, I need to make an opening statement. So the music, the song faded down, and it went blank. And I thought to myself, okay, here we go. Your voice is different. You're from the Midwest, and there's no Southern accent. So I said, it's just after midnight. I am Mike Mitchell, and this is Q104 FM. And I hit the song, and the nighttime DJ looked at me and said, you're not from the South, are you? And I said, no, sir. Cincinnati, Ohio via Toledo. So that's how Mike Mitchell began. I used Mike Collins in honor of a good friend when I worked in Tampa, Florida. But today, and right now, you are going to meet Jay Holland. So imagine you're driving in a car and you hear a commercial, and it might be Jay's voice for a grocery store. Also, you could be visually impaired. He has read for the state of Alabama, not just the city, but the state of Alabama for the visually impaired. And now he's doing news and probably, in my opinion, probably the most recognizable voice and dominant voice in Gadsden, Anniston, and the Birmingham area. And from Alabama right now, Jay Holland. And Jay, how are you, my friend?
Well, thank you, Mike. I'm doing very well, and I appreciate your small intro there. I did not even know some of that stuff. That's pretty good. Keep it short and sweet, and that's what I've always tried to do myself. So.
I grew up in Cincinnati, and there were a lot of incredible disc jockeys up there. So tell me this: when you were growing up, who got you on the radio hook? Who sucked you in and said, man, I can do that?
Well, we had some really good stations, most of them out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. I grew up in Dalton, Georgia, which is just 25 miles south of Chattanooga. So I listened to WFLI, WGOW, a lot of the, Chattanooga stations. We had some stations in Dalton, WBLJ, WTTI. We had some good stations, but the person that actually got me into radio, someone that was not even in radio, she was a journalism teacher, and she was right out of college, maybe 22 or 3, drove a baby blue brand new 1969 Cougar GT with a white vinyl top and white and leather interior, and she was just hot. She was one of these girls that you just really got your attention. Yes, Miss Lane, whatever you say, Miss Lane, we'll do whatever you want, Miss Lane, So when she said, well, Jay, I want you to do the WTTI high school reporter. Yes, Miss Lane, whatever you say, Miss Lane, I'll do whatever you need, Miss Lane. So that's how I got into radio. She took me to the radio station. At the time, the station itself was in Rocky Face, Georgia, the transmitter site. But the actual business studios was the second floor of the First Federal Building in downtown Dalton. So we went there, and a guy named Lamar McClure kind of took me under his wing and said, hey, you're going to start doing this school report. I got to show you a few things. So we did that, and he kind of showed me how to use the reel-to-reel tape machine and how to use cart machines. And it was quite a learning experience there for a while. I was just a junior in high school. So, I started my radio career doing the WTTI high school report, on a Saturday morning. So that's how I got started. And Lamar later decided that I would be good on the air and took me to the transmitter site and showed me how all that worked. Interestingly enough, my dad actually wired the studio out there in Rocky Face, Georgia. It's still there. I went by it just yesterday, taking my mom back home from Thanksgiving. So we've been in the business now since 1973.
Wow. Well, tell our viewers this.
53 years.
We Q104, I didn't know at the time I got there, was a very dominant FM radio station throughout the South. Yeah. And I'm used to markets like Cincinnati, Toledo, Birmingham, Atlanta, of course. But you worked there during the original heyday in the 70s, correct?
Yeah, I started working at Q104 in the fall of 1977. Me and Leo Davis and David Driscoll were all hired at the same time. David kind of fell by the wayside first. Leo stuck around for a long time. He was there after I left. But I left late 79. So I stayed there a couple of years through the big times and the heydays and all that stuff. Did 7 to midnight. And it was quite a ride. We would get hundreds of people remote.
Yes.
They would, anything we had, bumper stickers, T-shirts, albums, whatever we had, they wanted. And it was, I'm telling you, we filled up one time the Rainbow Plaza down on Rainbow Drive. We did a 4th of July holiday thing for them there, did fireworks and everything, filled up the entire parking.
Wow.
It was amazing. There were thousands of people there.
I did 7 to midnight.
Yeah.
I did overnights for 2 months, and then the nighttime DJ went back to Kentucky. But let me mention some names. Leo Davis, Chris James, Scott Boomer Roberts, Chris the Kid Kelly, Adam St. John, Jeff Scott, Terry DeRamus, production guy Steve Casey, my former bodyguard and still friend today, Keith Shear, and, of course, your guy, Jack Kennington. You guys did a high school football scoreboard for a while?
Oh, yeah. Jack was a real stalwart guy. He was in high school. He had all the energy. He was one of the players, and after he graduated, he just wanted to stick around, and do some things for his team. You got to understand the culture here. High school football is, they talk about Texas and all that. It's that way here, too. It's big. Friday night lights are big. Even the little small schools, draw thousands and thousands on Friday night. So Jack wanted to stick around. I was doing, the games on WGAD at the time, and Jack wanted to stick around, and I said, well, we need somebody on the sideline. I'll do that, So I gave him a microphone, and we plugged him up, and he came out there and did his usual, I'm going to get this done and taken care of, and y'all are never going to have to worry about anything. So
awesome.
Jack was, we really didn't train him much. I just said, look, you just explain what happened. And being a player, he knew what was going on, so he went ahead and did everything the way he should have done it. And Jack was one of these guys that you really do appreciate, because he'll do exactly what you tell him to do, and he won't quit until you tell him to quit.
Awesome.
He's just one of those guys.
Well, tell me this. You said you were at Q104 for a couple of years doing 7 to midnight. Where
Yeah.
did you go after you left Q104?
I went to WGAD, and WGAD was a 5,000 watt day. No, it was a nighttime as well,
Okay.
but it was WTTI was the daytime.
Okay.
But WGAD was, a 5,000 watt station in Gadsden, and Dave Driscoll worked there. I worked there. A lot of names. Gary Lee Love came and worked there. We had a lot of guys that did a lot of things. We did football, basketball, and if it was big enough, we did baseball. We did a lot of different things.
And you, GAD, when I got there, you guys carried the Alabama football and basketball games, correct?
Yes.
So you carried Saturday night. I'm watching here in Marietta, Georgia, the Alabama-Auburn game. And it was a blowout at first. I come home from my fun job, and I see that's a 3-point game, and I'm thinking, boy, the Alabama fans must be going crazy. Tell our viewers, how is it with Alabama and Auburn in the state of Alabama, even listening through the radio?
Well, it's essential. I think that's the best word to describe it. In those days, you could turn down the TV audio and listen to the radio, and we always had, the stalwart Alabama announcers, and then of course over on the other side, Auburn had their announcers, and they were always good. Touchdown, Alabama, and it just was one of those deals where, that was pretty much the way you did it. I always listened to the radio because John Forney was, he was the Alabama play-by-play guy, and in those days that was big, and we just, went from there and did everything that we knew how to do. There were a lot of quirky things that happened during those series. I was watching the Alabama-Auburn game the other night, and they were going through some of the things that happened. And I think punt, Bama punt was mentioned, and, the kick six and all the crazy things that have happened in that game down through the years, and it was really kind of even though I wasn't there in some of the games, being a part of the station that actually broadcast, it was kind of a big deal for all of us,
Did you ever have a dream of maybe working for the Crimson Tide radio or that Sunday coaches show with Coca-Cola and Golden Flake potato chips?
Yeah, no, I never figured myself as anything like that. I was, number one, I was in Gadsden. That's 2 hours from Tuscaloosa. I'm just a regular local radio guy, But I did love to go to the football games. Gadsden High, we did. Emma Sansom back in the day, and those were big games. We, Battle of the Creek Bank, we called it. It was, Emma Sansom was on the west side of the creek, and Gadsden High was on the east side, and it was a big deal. People tailgated out beside Gadsden
for high school football.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
It was really big.
Tell me this. I know you've retired from doing play-by-play in high school football.
Yeah.
For our viewers, high school football is a passion. I found out there. We did the high school football show with Adam St. John, and my first weekend I said, Arab wins tonight. And he touches me on the shoulder and says, Mike, it's Arab. And I said, well, it's not Arab? The Arabs in the desert? No. So I mispronounced, I think, 5 names of 20 games. So I was off to a fantastic start on Friday Night Football. List for me 2 or 3 of your favorite games that you ever announced.
2 or 3?
Yeah.
Gosh. I remember a Hoax Bluff game when they were in the championship game, when it was out like down on the goal line.
Okay.
fourth down and a half a yard to go. They score, they win, they miss, they go home. And Hoax Bluff pulled a quarterback sneak and got it into the end zone and won the game. That was probably one of my favorites of all time right there. And then you start going back to Buster Gross at Emma Sansom and, all the great coaches at Gadsden High.
You ever meet and interview Coach DiLorenzo?
Vince DiLorenzo and I played football together at Jacksonville State.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Coach D was a very small linebacker, but he was always around the ball. And he coached up 2 or 3 high school football state championship teams at Gadsden High. And I was very privileged to be able to kind of meld in with that group for a long time.
Wow.
And
you said you played college football with Coach D. Did you work on the radio in Jacksonville?
Oh, yeah.
That J92 station, I think?
Yeah. After I left WTTI and came to college at JSU,
okay,
I started, I was there when we started WLJS. There the first day we went on the air, and Mike Sandifer, a guy that lives in Gunnersville, started the station and, kicked it off with Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin. And we started the station on the 25th of September, 1975. So I was there when we started that and became the program director. And
wow. Did you hire Leo Davis?
No, Leo was at JSU already.
Okay.
So he had an interest in radio and started coming around to the radio station, and we kind of learned it together. And then Leo went to work for Q104 and stayed there for a long time.
He was my boss the 3 years I was there. Probably, in my opinion, one of the nicest and most professional individuals I've ever met in my life.
He moved to Texas, and we just haven't heard from him.
He's now in Fort Lauderdale. He lives near the beach. Yes, he's pretty much retired, but yeah. But yeah, let me mention this, Jay. You mentioned Coach DiLorenzo. I have some friends still in Gadsden today, which are incredible. Khaki Beatty and her family always had me over for Thanksgiving because my family was in Cincinnati. The Maddox family, Tracy Maddox played basketball. Her dad was an official. Her late sister was an SEC female basketball official.
Yeah.
Randy Beeson, Robin Brown and her mom up in the Boaz area. Christy Barrett and the Barrett family were phenomenal to me over Christmas. Like I said, Adam St. John, Keith Shear, Jack Kennington. And there's an individual that I have become really good friends with on Facebook, and she actually loved Coach DiLorenzo. And her name is Lori Goss Austin Bryant Sheely Turner. So she has about 7 names, and 6 of them are Alabama greats. But everybody, Jay, who I met there treated me like I was part of their family. Yeah. And I had never experienced that. Growing up in Ohio, it's blue-collar, hard-working town, going to school in Toledo, the Glass City, south of Detroit. It's pretty rough, and you kind of go elsewhere. And everybody who I mentioned, especially Khaki Beatty and her family and the Maddoxes, were simply just incredible to me. I'm a stranger, a single guy, and they said, Mike, I know you have the day off. We'd like to have you over for dinner. Alabama Southern hospitality.
You can't beat that.
So tell me this. Explain to the viewers, because radio is a very intimate media where you just listen in your car, through your cell phone now. You read to the visually impaired, and you read, once a week to them, and they sent it out through all the Alabama public radio stations. Tell me about that.
Well, that was just something that, my radio mentors, Ed Carroll.
Okay.
A lot of the guys that went before me, they stressed community.
Okay.
You've got to work in the community. You've got to be, there for this. You got to do that. You got to pay your civic rent, essentially. So that's what was driven into me at an early age, where I went out and did whatever I needed to do to take care of things that were going on, whether it be a United Way thing or, something that, the Kidney Foundation or some other group, that was working in the community was doing. That's what I was, going to do and try to make it as successful as possible.
Nice.
Like we did a remote for the Red Cross. All the stations came together. We did a live remote inside Gadsden's Convention Hall. And we drew over 1,200 pints of blood in a single day.
Wow.
That's the kind of stuff that we always tried to do. Kiwanis Pancake Day.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, we were out there hustling, trying to make it happen.
And
so this is the kind of thing that I was doing with, the reading program. So I had the gifts, I could read, and I didn't mind sharing it. So that's what we did.
Fantastic. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah.
I used to do radio, well, Jay's radio station, and I left for television. I always wanted to be a TV anchor, and ESPN just blossomed. So after 2 years, the station went under and I went elsewhere. And this is a letter from 1990. All right, Jay?
Yeah.
And this person says, my mom still thinks your voice is very cute. I think of cute as a visual. My father still tapes you on your TV show, and I have a copy of your last radio show on Q104. But the thing I'm proud of, Jay, is my last night in the studio, Q104, I always told a caller, please go after your dreams. Please, no matter what cost. And when I was young, as I said in the intro, my father gave me a microphone and I practiced announcing the lineups for high school basketball because I wrestled. So basketball. I always wanted to be on the radio. I've done that, Jay. I've always wanted to be on television. I've done that. I always wanted to be a high school teacher. I've done that. So my career like I said, these are letters from 1990. Here's the old Q104 logo, from stationery, and I kept everything. It was amazing. And throughout this, we're going to show pictures of you behind the microphone, Q104. Tell me about your time at Wax Radio, the sister station of Q104.
Well, the first experience I had with the Big Wax was on the air doing weekends. Now, at the Big Wax, it was a union station, so we had to have, the proper licensing, and we had to have a union card. It was the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. IBEW, can't remember the number. But anyway, we got all that done, and the union shift was 6A to 6P, 6P to 6A.
Okay.
So, you can imagine playing 2-minute records for 12 hours, but that's what the shift called for. So that's what we did. ABC News at the top of the hour, and then, you start playing Montgomery Gentry and whoever else that came along, 2 minutes at a time. Now, occasionally you would be able to get the old, what was that guy's name? Marty Robbins.
Okay.
With the song El Paso.
Okay.
El Paso was like 4 minutes long, so you really love to dig out the old tune El Paso. But nevertheless, we did weekend shifts for 12 hours at a time. After 8 hours, you made time and a half.
Wow.
So it was really, really a good deal. And that was my first experience with the Big Wax.
Okay.
Later, on October 31st, 1994, they hired me to do a talk show.
Okay.
On the Big Wax. So I started back doing talk. I was the first talk show to ever actually be on the Big Wax. So, and you got to remember, 570, is the frequency of the Big Wax, 5,000 watts. So, it was a massive coverage area. My mother and dad listened to me every morning in Dalton, Georgia. So, it was a great signal. I mean, just a huge, I think one of the old former general managers used to say, the Big Wax, the station you can hear everywhere. And it's true, it was big. So we called it the Big Wax. And I started that format October 31st. And not long after that, was the Newt Gingrich Republican Revolution of 1994. And, I was off to the races.
Very good.
That was the way I had been talking. The very first talk show I ever did was the day Coach Bryant died here in Alabama.
Okay.
I was a rock and roll DJ at WGAD. It was right at 2:00 in the afternoon. I had just walked in the control room getting ready for my shift. NBC News was already on. It was going to go off at 5 minutes after the top of the hour. So I was in the control room getting ready, and all of a sudden I hear these bells out in the hallway. Ding, 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 5 bells. And, I thought, oh, well, my mind flashed to Tuscaloosa. I said, Coach Bryant's died. And I walked out there, and sure enough, it was already typed out the date line, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, close parentheses, hyphen, Paul William Bear Bryant, and it typed out a small paragraph, probably about, a couple of inches, And so that's all I had to begin with. But I picked up the phone and called Ed Carroll, our general manager, and said, Ed, Coach Bryant's passed away. And he said, oh, mercy me, what should we do? And I said, well, Ed, I was program director. I said, Ed, I think we ought to take calls. I said, we can play records anytime.
Sure.
And he said, well, yeah, just go ahead and do that. And he said, oh, by the way, while you're at it, he said, just mark off all the commercials. We'll make them up tomorrow.
Okay. Well,
So
let me share this,
there I was,
because
I
this
didn't have
incident,
anything else to do. I was panicked when he said that.
but I know you made it
I didn't let
because
him know that. I just hung up the phone and said, okay. But anyway, I walked back in that control room. I had about a minute left.
yeah.
And I just sat there for a second and said, well, just carry on. Just do what you're going to do,
And for the viewers, if you
Yeah.
spent any time in Alabama, Paul Bear Bryant was probably the most legendary, intimidating, positive coach in college football. He might not have won the national championships number of Nick Saban, but this man was a figure. And understand what Jay was saying. When you were in the studio, there was a news feed coming out of New York City. And I remember watching a clip of Walter Cronkite when he announced the actual death of John F. Kennedy. He choked up, but the piece of paper came from the wire. So imagine Jay in a studio like this, facing nobody and getting this incredible, information about, I would say, in the state of Alabama, being a resident for 3 years, one of the top 3 people in all-time Alabama history. And you were on the radio when it was announced he passed away.
Yeah. It was traumatic, to say the least. The NBC newscast went off. I did the weather, just like normal. And then after the weather forecast, instead of playing a jingle to go into music, I just read that small paragraph at the time. That's all we had. And everyone pretty well knew what was going on with Coach Bryant. He was in very critical condition. But by the time I got through reading this 5-line newscast, just a small paragraph, all 6 of my lines in the studio were blinking, So I didn't even have to ask for a phone call, So I hit the line, WGAD, what's on your mind? And, they would say, Coach Bryant did this for me, or Coach Bryant did that, or sorry to hear about Coach Bryant. We were laughing 1 minute and literally crying. For 4 hours, we did that straight.
Wow. Well, tell me this as we wrap it up.
Yeah.
When was the last high school football game, play-by-play, you have ever broadcast?
The last one was Westbrook Christian School. It was just the games that we were doing that time for WKXX FM, Mix 102.9 here in town. And Brody Croyle was there in the studio with me, and Brody, and of course, I watched Brody grow up. You know, his mom and dad started John Croyle Big Oak Ranch in 1974, and I was a freshman at JSU at the time, and our group went out there to help him set up that farm. We went out there and spent 2 or 3 weekends out there helping him fix fences and, you know, stretch new fences and get cattle here and there. And John and T and Marcia and I and all of our, you know, friends at the time from JSU, we stayed a lot of time out there, you know, spent a lot of time out there, and we watched Reagan and T and you know, and Brody and all, you know, and John just kind of become one of our family as well. So they're kind of close to me and always have been, and whatever I can do for them, I try to do, but they've really just done so well. And the Big Oak Ranch, you know, John is running the boys part, Reagan's running the girls part, and it's really doing really, really well right now. So our hats off to them as always. And we love you, John and T, and all the fine folks that made that possible. And Coach Bryant was one of them. He built the first house there, you know. So,
and this facility is for young men and women trying to get their lives turned around.
That's right.
Clean up from the wall, maybe a bad home situation, to give them an avenue to. There is hope, and here's the guidance to get there.
That's right.
All right. Well, Jay, you have yourself a great holiday. There'll be pictures galore, and I'll post this on Facebook. Thank you so much, my friend. I wish we could have worked together doing high school football or something, but you are a legend in the state of Alabama. Thank you so very much.
Love you, man.
Love you too. All right. And in closing, I know it is the month of December, and I want to wish everybody a very happy holiday, Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, and like we talked about, radio sucked me in, and I've always enjoyed hearing somebody who sounded upbeat, had a good, clean voice, enjoyed the music, or enjoyed the subject. So I appreciate you tuning in. I will be at my dad and Nancy's, Chris, Logan's, and my 2 nephews after Christmas, and I'm looking forward to seeing them. I haven't seen them since my surgery last October, so I wish you the very safest of holidays, and remember, be nice to people, because it most of the time comes back around when you least expect it. This is the Mayday Show, and we'll see you in a month.